How's it going, all?
Hey, Jacob.
Good morning, Jacob.
I'm gonna just update the agenda here and then we can get going unless someone else was already doing that.
Don't think so.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay. We'll post in the chat. Here's the agenda. If you have any agenda items, welcome everybody to Tinkerbell contributors meeting. Glad to see lots of people on the call. The video has started recording. And we do have a code of conduct. Please check out the agenda and read that if you haven't had a chance. And welcome if you're first time on the call, excited to have you. If you are interested in introducing yourself, go ahead, but no pressure, no requirements there. Okay. Feel free to raise your hand or introduce yourself at any time as well during the meeting. We will get started here. Do we have any show and tell items? Nobody? Okay. No problem. All right, nice. Somebody is writing a topic as we speak.
Yeah, I'll put it out there if there's not a light agenda. Thanks to everyone who reviewed the Kubernetes API PR and the proposal. Excited about that being merged. Next steps are I already have a PR open for adding a controller. It's a non-hot code path change, so it doesn't affect any existing client server stuff, but it adds a new controller component. I'm going to hold off on updating docs just because all it does is react to some CRDs being created in a cluster, but you can't really use it with anything else but itself yet. I'll have a follow-on PR soon after this is merged for that will do some Tink API stuff, and that will be bigger and have some more changes. Yeah, that'll be pending on this controller getting through and everything, and then I'll have the doc updates and everything. But yeah, so if you are inclined to take a look at the CR or the PR, and you can see see what's going on there. Already responded to some feedback, but if anyone else has any, I'd be happy to take a look.
Right on. Yeah, thanks for that work, Micah. Really exciting. Any other questions or comments for Micah? All right. Let's see, triage party calendar event. Was that you, Jeremy, by chance?
It was. I don't have a fix for it, but the notice the one that you Jacob had originally sent had expired, and so I suppose that raises also what to do with the invite for this event, because I think it was sent by Tom in June or July of last year, and so it's not something that updates. If we cancel a meeting, that doesn't cancel. It was a static event that just recurs forever. And if that's an okay thing, that's fine, but also probably need to add one for the triage party if we want folks to be aware of when it is.
Yeah, great point. I'll reach out to Thomas. I think he's got the calendar access and know-how since he's created one at least. And I apparently created one, but forgotten how to redo it. So I'll go back through and see if I can't get that updated. Thanks for bringing that up.
So those are just made in Zoom as a Zoom auto generates an ICS file with a recurring event. So there's no master calendar anywhere. It's just a scattered
that's
collection
right.
of.
That's fair. So it's
And-
just creating a new Zoom link, send it out to the mailing list, and then we'll have the ICS, right?
Or the Zoom link, is the same. Where you can just create a vanilla ICS file with the recurring dates for the end of the year. I will commit to doing this. I'll put it on the I'll put it on the page. The Zoom links are the same for both events. It's fine.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
As an end user, I'd recommend having it just accessible on the Google Docs or on the Google Calendar rather than having to delve through the mailing list archives to find the link.
Sure. Good point. Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. Any other comments or thoughts there? Okay, sweet. I had an item. So there was proposal 22. This was around re-architecting boots. It's been merged for a bit now. And part of it calls for creating new repositories for the distinct functionality within the current boots. So I wanted to propose the creation of a new iPixie repo in the Tinkerbell org with the unclever name of iPixie. Is there, and again, you can look more, I posted the proposal link in there, but so just hold iPixie stuff. So it will move over our iPixie builds. It will hold the code to run TFTP and HTTP to serve the iPixie binaries. Is there any feedback or comments or concerns about me creating this new repository? Cool. I like
Sorry,
that.
the reason for I should have put my hand up.
Yep.
The iPixie repo, is that just for the custom fork of iPixie with like things like Comboot enabled and whatnot?
Yeah, so yeah, currently in Boots, we do like a custom iPixie build. Yep, so this would move that over, but not just that. It would also house code to run the TFTP and HTTP server. So part of the proposal, I guess, real quick, is to pull out these discrete parts and write libraries for them, and then have Boots come back over and consume those. So we'll still have a single Boots that will have all this functionality. It will just live it will be consuming other libraries that run this.
Okay.
And so that makes separation of concerns very clear, right? This complexity of Boots is now isolated into layers, and it can be reasoned about a little bit more clearly. The proposal talks a little bit more about it, but that's the general idea.
For alternatives, is it something to consider to just make these package modules within the packages within the same Boots project? Like I'm looking at the visual and I'm looking at the pictures, and it says import, and it just arrows over to DHCP, proxy DHCP, HTTP, TFTP. Could those just be like internals, or could they be packages that we would export? My concern, and I was going through some stuff with Chris the other day, and it's just that Tinkerbell it is across many repos right now. And the problem that creates when you're using the sandbox is that the sandbox is supposed to be the official guide of all of these versions align under some magic version of the sandbox. And so there's this just greater problem of we have all these sub repos or all of these repos on Tinkerbell, and none of them are versioned. And if we're going to add 4 more and they're not versioned and their name is so generic, and it's hard to figure out what they do, how they align. So I'm trying to avoid that problem getting worse than it is. And my thoughts are maybe it's maybe we can name prefix these so that they're not so generic that somebody looking at this might think that it's the DHCP client or server, a fork of it or something. Like maybe it's Boots DHCP, maybe it's Boots HTTP, or maybe it's insert clever name here, that we would version it. And if at all possible, maybe we don't make these submodules, maybe we make them, or maybe we don't make these new projects, maybe we make them submodules. Your thoughts?
Yeah, great concerns. Thank you for bringing those up. So some of that was an alternative I considered. One of the challenges that I saw there that I wanted to overcome was historically, Boots has never been able to cleanly create these lines. It's been around, and all these services currently live in the same repo, but the complexity of this layered thing we call Boots, we've been unable to break it, right? And so this was to force a clean separation, to solve this challenge of not being able to create these just in general, right? Historically, we've never been able to do them, and a slow rewrite into it was more complex than I was interested in taking on. And so that's why this proposal said, hey, clean break, create new repos. And one interesting thing, by keeping this idea of Boots and having it import the other ones, Sandbox would only ever talk to Boots, right? So Boots versioning doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't get any more difficult than it currently is, because Boots would still be that layer that determines what the Sandbox consumed, right? So if we solve the Boots versioning just in general, I think regardless of whether it had additional libraries it pulled in my opinion, we would still solve that idea. James, you had your hand up.
Yeah, not so much on this specific variation on the topic, but I was wondering if any consideration was given to utilizing just off-the-shelf TFTPD and HTTP server for serving up these iPXE artifacts in particular, rather than integrating that into Boots as it currently is.
Yeah, I think that's 100% on the table. That's another nice thing is a clean break allows us to start kind of from scratch, right? We still want to learn and take over that kind of earned knowledge that we've learned in production from TFTP and HTTP. But yeah, there's no reason why we couldn't pivot to a new library like some general HTTP and TFTP service. Any more thoughts, Marcus, around those ideas? I think Boots. So one of your thoughts too was apologize. You had a lot of good stuff in there. One of your other thoughts was Boots, like Boots dash iPXE or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
reasonable.
I'm thinking about like what it looks like to import these in the Boots Go project. So I off the top of my head, I wasn't really familiar what the structure of these things look like. So jumping into them, each one of these directories is just like 4 or 5 Go files, at least the couple I've seen so far, and it just feels like something that doesn't have to be broken out. If in the end we're just talking about a single Boots binary that consumes these 4 or 5 pieces, these could just be made modules within the Boots project instead of modules in their own Git repo.
Yep. So
I'm worried about the versioning too. Like if we start putting those things over there, we're going to have to start version pinning those sub modules. We could just do that here.
Yeah, that's fair. One of the trade-offs, and other community members have brought this up in issues. I unfortunately don't have the link now, but another reason to break these out is that a single change to the DHCP service requires you to completely rebuild iPXE every single time. And there's a lot of this concern that has nothing to do with it, right? If you want to just change one little file or something in the HTTP service, right, then you're having to rerun all the other things in all the other components. And again, also on top of that, right, is this idea that while it might be small in nature, I think it helps to really consume a mental model of this complex system is to break it into layers, because now you can think very clearly, and you can understand in one repository what the concerns are, what the responsibilities are. One change to iPixie only ever requires you to build iPixie once over there, right? And then you do a version bump in the kind of upstream boots. And I've got very clear lines, very clear separation of concern, and mental model of this complex animal we call boots, I think, is created and made in very clear manner. So. See, wait, Chris, do we have a chart that tells what versions of things work with other versions? No, so versioning is a challenge in and of itself right now, right? I don't think this proposal that's been accepted isn't trying to solve versioning for sure. And yeah, I agree, it doesn't help because we're creating more repositories that now have unversioned things in them. But versioning is a challenge in itself. None of our things are versioned in terms of Go module, right? You can, the sandbox is, right? We have a 0.60, right? And that has specific, inside there is a file that has specific versions. So technically you could say there's some sort of versioning. It's not definitely the end all be all, and it needs lots of work, but I think versioning in and of itself is a challenge that we have to solve regardless of whether we have new repos or less repos or whatever it may be, right? And I think, yeah, there's previous meetings we've talked about this, and I think it's a big undertaking, and so I think maybe a lot of people have shied away from it. We need a courageous individual to champion this idea and say, here's a proposal. Let me see if I can run with it and help everybody else, because I think everybody wants it. I don't think there's anybody that would say, no, I'm good. I'm good with our non-versions, right? Unfortunately or fortunately, I think we're looking for a champion at the moment, if I'm not mistaken.
Back to your boots point. So I'm looking in the boots command directory, and there's boots composed of DHCP, HTTP, and TFTP. Does that all come down to a single boots binary? Because I could understand iPixie being pulled out of here if that's not part of the boots binary, but maybe all of the components of the boots binary stay in the boots project.
Well, so the proposal that I made is that everything goes out, and the boots repo becomes just a small library that creates a CLI, and one that's very flexible in terms of what it can run. So it could run all of the existing services, or you could have, we would build flags to say, well, I only want certain services. And what this allows is some nice operational flexibility. One thing we've noticed internally at Equinix Metal is that it would be nice to have some of these pieces isolated so that we could scale them independently, make them more reliable, do different types of those things. But currently you can't toggle any of those things, right? So you get all of it or you get nothing of it. So, and there's other ways to handle this, right? But like, I run everything, but maybe I don't send I just don't plain send any TFTP traffic here, or I don't have a DHCP relay, so boots in this instance never serves it, right? I think you can get around it, but the idea would be the new boots, the proposal hopefully captures some of this. The new boots would be just a place that ran this CLI that would give you all the options to turn things on and off. Right, there would be no code that described how DHCP was run or anything. It would just be consuming DHCP. It would be consuming TFTP, HTTP stuff, and it would be consuming like a proxy DHCP server, and then one more HTTP server, I guess, for like our iPixie scripts, right? So there would be technically 4 different libraries that this one boots would consume.
Yeah, I'll take a look at the actual proposal and give feedback there. Thanks.
Okay. I'll so the idea is I'll create this repo and just start to slowly put code in. There's no reason why we have to adopt it, but if there are no objections, I will create the repo. and we can still get feedback on the proposal. Definitely not like set in stone, no changing, but if that's okay with everyone, I will create boots-iPixie. Okay, thanks. Dan, 0 rights.
Yeah, so I think I've brought this up before, but we've been doing some work inside Equinix Metal to speed up some of the development, speed up some of the deployment. One of which is, even though we do quite a lot to ensure that machine images are as small as possible, we still write all contents of the machine image, including a lot of zeros. So Packer will create a big disk that's all zeros, well, or 0 strings. It will then use that and write a file system and a partition table and then files, etc., and whatever, all of the jazz that makes up an operating system and persistent storage underneath. We added some logic into some of the image to disk actions in a fork, which will parse the data before it actually writes it. And in the event that it is zeros, it will effectively just move the disk pointer along. And now in testing, we've seen it speed things up quite dramatically. So Windows goes from 2 minutes to write like 40 gig down to 80 seconds maybe, or something or other. An ESXi goes from 37 seconds to 6. So the question really is, inside Equinix Metal, we circumvent security issues around this by ensuring that as part of the dprov, we do a load of 0 whites and ensure that SSDs and NVMEs and persistent devices are securely wiped. In the real world, that is something that either an action or an end user would need to take care of, because doing that action without clearly wiping the disk before will leave data persisting on the disk that a forensic tool would be able to use to find bits and bobs and things like that. So my question really is, would it make sense for that code to be actually added into the image to disk actions and archive to disk actions, with a caveat pointing out that you can use this, you'll get speedy results, but there are quite big security implications by using this? Yep.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah. I think that's something that should be called out in the documentation, right? But I think that's the right place for it otherwise.
Okay. Cool. Okay, I'll add that to those actions, and there will be a PR. Well, there'll be multiple PRs actually.
Would this be, so this would be something you'd have to toggle on to get the
Yes.
speedy stuff? Okay.
Yep.
I like that, because then you don't fall into the unsecure by default. So very cool.
I mean, could call it ludicrous mode or something or other, but I mean, you do get quite significant savings by not actually. And there's for things like Raspberry Pis with SD cards being rubbish, by saving those writes and things like that, you will get some improvements to the lifespan of your terrible persistent storage inside your Raspberry Pis and things like that.
I like that too, because I iterate Tinkerbell on Raspberry Pis a lot. So I'll go through SD cards, yeah, less quickly now.
Nice.
So that's cool.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Oh, Marcus, nice. You Semver everything. Go for it.
Yeah. So I'm digging through the Tinkerbell proposal history, and August 21st, 2020 is when there was number 2 that was about the mood around releasing code, and it had some goals, non-goals, and it does talk about Semver. I mean, it might be worth digging in here to see exactly what we said about Semver. It sounds like we're saying we're going to use Semver, but I haven't seen it on anything. So what I'm getting at is let's just stamp everything with an 0.1.0. Now, the only thing I can think of that would maybe stop us from wanting to do that or being able to do that immediately is if our CI/CD stuff doesn't have the means to tag our images with the tags. So that might be something that we'd have to do first. To defend stamping everything with an O.1.0, I think that originally there was some aversion, originally when I'm talking like 2020, there was some aversion to stamping anything because of some kind of, it seems like it's saying that the code is in some kind of state, and we weren't ready to say that it was in any kind of state, but an O.anything tag is intended absolutely for that. Like, there's no guarantees that we're going to keep anything the same between any versions as long as we're in a zero major. So let's just give ourselves the means to talk symbolically about the versions that are available. What has changed between Boots last year and Boots today? I have to talk about SHAs to tell you exactly what's changed. And then those SHAs are meaningless. I have to tell you about the exact dates to be able to express any kind of change in the history of any of these different components. And so without even trying to align versions between products, forget that. maybe that's a question too. Should we try to align versions between products? I think the answer is no. Just being able to say that Boots version O.1.0 is now updated to version O.2.0, and the changes are, we added a new field. Being able to do that is very helpful to developers trying to use this, trying to update from one version of our dependencies to another, and it's currently not possible just because nothing is versioned. So I think it might already be expressed in our current proposals. So I can try to dig that up. I can try to bring this up as a more official point next time, but like I'm sick of it. We need O.1.0s across the board. I don't know, thoughts on that?
Go ahead, James.
A non-thought. I can't see what argument there would be to this, against this. And we have talked about it forever. So that's my thought.
And Sandbox is supposed to be our aggregating of versions right now, but it's not in a great state at all. The documentation Chris has been running through this. The documentation is in terrible state, and so Sandbox has proved that it is not a way to accomplish this.
Yeah, I'll agree wholeheartedly. I think it's much needed, and I like the idea of just let's throw O.1 out, because it's not going to hurt anything. If you don't want to use it, then don't use it, right? You can still use these other tagged, commits, hash, date things that you want. But yeah, the concerns I think you already brought up. We just got to make sure our container images get built with it, and might be some small discussion around whether there's a V in there or not, right? So
yeah, it's fair too. All right, so maybe this is something to bring up in the next one as a follow-up, and I'll do some research between here and there to find out if it would work.
Awesome, thanks, Marcus. Really appreciate that. I think this is a big step for us. Any other comments or thoughts? James says down with the V. Wait, is that?
Yeah, it occurred to me
I'm
after
down with.
Yeah, no, I'm like down with V. I'm against the V regime.
Against the, okay.
Yeah, version numbers don't have letters.
It's unfortunate that the Go people decided to strictly follow that.
Did they really?
Yep.
Oh yeah, I think we're gonna run into the case where Go might have the V, but then container images don't have the V, I think. Is that what we're gonna run into, I think?
Well, the container.
Chris, we couldn't hear you.
Oh.
Oh, all right. Sorry, go ahead, Stephen, sorry.
I was just going to say the container images, I think those strings can be whatever you want. So you could have the V in there.
Oh, okay.
It's just, frustrating, like James said, that I'm on this, same boat as him, that the V is redundant, but that's what semantic versioning says, unfortunately.
So semantic version says that, or does the Go versioning?
Yeah, semantic versioning says.
Oh, so it has nothing to do with Go. It's just semantic versioning, and Go's using semantic versioning. So
I mean, I don't
withdraw my statement.
Well, is it?
Semantic
I-
versioning says that the version does not have the V in it, but when you represent it in things, you can put the V in it. But like
Oh, okay.
the definition of what semantic version is this thing is version 1.2.3. The V is not part of that. But then they get into the hyphenated stuff, and that's part of your version. So
So it sounds like Go does have some constraints around its versioning, and maybe that's something we'll need to just take into consideration.
They definitely require a V. Well, the Go stuff does. The Go module, the dependency management will be unhappy if you try specifying a tag that doesn't start with a V.
Okay. Cool. Oh yeah, great link there, Marcus. Yep, there's very clearly a V in that big image right there. So, okay, any other thoughts around this? Comments, questions? Awesome. Thanks again, Marcus. Appreciate that. Mike has left, but he left one last item. Can someone own uploading past call recordings? Yes, that is a great request. I think in the past, Jeremy, have you offered to do some you've offered to do some YouTube uploading, is that correct?
Yeah, so the story at the moment is I can put them on YouTube. I need to be able to get them though. And
Okay.
so being a co-host of the meeting allows you to start the recording, but it doesn't put the recordings in your account. I think this meeting belongs to Thomas, and so I will check in with him again as to if he has access to those recordings. The last two, it sent me emails and notifications for, but a 9-second video, and so that doesn't look like it's the real thing.
Okay. I will also talk to Thomas and check if I have the ability to do that, because if I do, I will be willing to hand those off to you to get uploaded or figure out a way to make it cleaner. So,
and then I can add someone else as a YouTube owner. But getting them onto YouTube is not the hard part, but extracting them from Zoom has been our hiccup.
Okay. Yeah, I will take an action to look into that too. All right, awesome. I see Arvind, you've put a show and tell in. That's exciting. CapT and PB&J.
Yeah, sorry guys, I was a little late to join, so I didn't get to do it in the show and tell time. Shall I go now or?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so just a little context. In the last meeting, I was just bringing up about like integrating Tinkerbell and PB&J, and I kind of wanted to know like how that was going to go forward. So this is what I just wanted to show is like a small like a POC or something that we did like in for integrating CapT to talk with PB&J, because like instead of the whole Tinkerbell stack, it's like if you're using in a Kubernetes way and you want to create bare metal clusters with CapT, we kind of want to do power-ons with CapT itself, and that was the idea, and that's what like we did. Like I worked on like a small POC or something. It's kind of rough, but I just wanted to show it and get like the vibe from the community. Let me try and share my screen. Okay, there's like so many screens. Okay. I'm sorry, this is the first time I'm sharing screen on Zoom. It's not letting me do something. Oh. Can you guys see?
Yep.
Can you see it? Okay, awesome. Okay, so to start off with, I have my tab out here, like which is just like a tilt up. I wanted to do like a tilt up so that we can see the logs of the different containers. So this is just basically CapT running on a kind cluster, And for context with that, this is like a kind cluster right here in my terminal. And I have like all the CAPT controllers and all the other cluster API stuff running on this kind cluster right here. So the main thing I wanted to show was like what the idea of like adding a new CRD to CAPT that helps interact with PB&J. So the current state of PB&J is another gRPC service, like similar to how the entire Tink stack is like a bunch of gRPC servers. And I was just looking into CAPT, and I saw like the way that we are interacting with Tinkerbell right now in CAPT is to like by doing gRPC calls. So in a similar fashion, like I mean, I was able to whip something up like which is a BMC object. So BMC mainly for PB&J, saying that there's like a BMC controller now that's also part of all the other controllers that run in CAPT. So as you can see in the logs, like similar to like how we have something that monitors hardware and workflows, we also have like something that monitors BMC. A little context to what BMC is this just like a new Tinkerbell CRD. The CRD basically, well, this is very rough implementation. So basically what I want from the BMC information is that I want to know the address of the BMC username and password. This I do think like we're going of making this into like a secret ref or something like that. But for now, for like the minimum implementation, I just kept the username and password right here. And then like also the vendor, because the minimum information that we need to make any PB&J call would be like these 4 information. So essentially I constructed like a CRD that based out of these information that this controller watches for. And then I have like this like a demo, like a BMC here, like that basically describes the, so there's basically like I created an object of this type. And what happens is that when I apply that object to the cluster, the BMC controller immediately takes action, and it does like a PB&J power on call. Currently, I've only implemented like power on operation because I'm kind of assuming that like if you're going to create clusters with hardware and your hardware is like not powered on yet, then BMC would go ahead and try to power it on. And if it's already powered on, it's going to be like a no op operation from PB&J. So basically, this is doing like a normal PB&J power on call. I'm sorry, the logs are like I was going to do a better logging, but I couldn't find it. Yeah, so as you can see, like it's doing a power action on call to PB&J, and that essentially tries to go on power on the box that I'm trying to demo with. Of course, like this is for demo purpose, I'm not actually using a real box, so I've kind of stubbed this part out, and it's not really doing a BMC call here. It's just like mock data, like mock information that I have like running here. But imagine like there is a proper box that PB&J can talk to, and it has basically done a power action on call here. And once that has happened, I'm also going in and setting in the BMC object that has been created. Like, so this is the information, like it's like a random name that is my teammate Pankti, she's on the call. So we were just working on this. So I put a random name here, it's a random password and username. So I also have like a state object as a status object as part of the BMC CRD. And now, as you can see, like it's been powered on. That means like the PB&J call was successfully made, and that like it goes and sets this onto a power on state. And that's pretty much telling us that, hey, the box has been powered on, and we can go ahead with the other rest of the flow for CAPT, essentially like the Pixie booting and the normal good old Tinkerbell stuff. Is that's the main gist of the demo. So the main thing is like introducing a little extending to what we have in CAPT to have another CRD that can talk to PB&J. So that was kind of like an idea that I wanted to bring up to the team and like also get feedback and see what people think about it. Yeah, I think I'm done with my little small demo.
Awesome. That's really cool, man. Thanks for all that work. I had a couple questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
My understanding of controllers, right, is that they check the current state and the requested state, and they make the current state look like the requested state, right? So this
Yeah.
idea, would this controller be doing that? Would the idea be that you say, hey, I want this powered on, and then it will continually, theoretically, forever be checking the power and make sure it's on?
Yeah, so essentially like that, in the status field, there is like the state object. So like if the first time it's created, like that state object is going to be like empty. So it's going to go ahead and actually do like the BBNJ call to power it on. But the next time it monitors the CRD, it's going to see that the state is already powered on and not going to do anything. But like at any point, if it does get like powered down again, so those are all additions. I've not really worked on that. So currently it's just doing power on by default. But like technically we can add like an action field to the CRD and we can ask it to do any action. And the controller is going to ensure that the state that we request that particular BMC to be in, it's going to be in that state. Like similar to what you're saying.
Okay. Yeah, we might. I think personally, I'd love to see this go forward. I think there's some interesting, what's the right word here? Effects of creating a controller of this nature, because what happens if you're you provision this machine and then you hand it off to a user or something like that, or yourself, and then in the course of that you're like, oh, I want to power this machine down. Well, your controller is probably going to power it back up, right? So
right. Yeah.
There might be some interesting, we might have to figure out some interesting ways to interact with that and determine whether things should or shouldn't. And then there's other things like next boot device. Would you want it to always be checking that the next boot device is set to what it should be? And can you have multiple? You might need to create multiple records for the same BMC. Is that possible? Anyways, these are just thoughts and future ideas that we might, need to like just walk down the road. But regardless, I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So the main thing I wanted to bring up here is that if this would be something that you guys would be interested in, maybe I can do like something like a draft PR or something and get the conversation rolling, or like if this is something that's off track and like we're not looking for, like just wanted to like get the feel for that. Any thoughts, anyone?
Definitely raise it as a proposal or issue or PR somewhere. Don't let this be lost. I was wondering while I was listening to the demo. Did you implement? Did this piggyback off of the same CRD work that introduces a hardware resource? Was this the power state of a hardware component, or was this a power state on a new BMC resource?
It's currently like a power state on a new BMC resource. I didn't want to touch anything in the existing hardware, like keep it as is and then like do this separately. But yeah, of course, like there's a lot of scope to integrate this. Like this information could be made part of the hardware CRD itself if we don't want like a new CRD. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done. So it was just like my ideas. I just kept it separate so that it's easier to work with and also like easier to demo with.
Yeah, I think there's probably room for a proposal about managing power, and you can go into all of these topics there. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I think something implied from this conversation and the previous hardware one is probably what needs to be written is a really clear statement of like what can be in Cube versus like how tied Tinkerbell can be to Cube. Because one of the interesting things about Tinkerbell, it's unique, not unique, but like unusual in today's software is it exists in the pre-boot environment where often we don't have Cube yet, right? Like the metal case one of the places where we don't use Tink today that I'd really like to is to be able to, before Kubernetes is even available in a data center, be able to use Tinkerbell, bring Tinkerbell up and start bootstrapping your Kubernetes environment. So that's just one I want to think through. I mean, it might be good for the team just to kind of make a statement, be like, this can go in CRDs and this should be free of Kubernetes requirements, right? Like, because more we get into CRDs and things like that, the more we kind of require cubes to operate. So that's just something I think that would be good for the project to like make crisp for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. I think Micah's proposal captures some of that, but yeah, there's definitely some more crisping I think we should do because yeah, I agree, very important. Sorry, Arvin, another question. How much of existing PB&J code base did you use to do the demo here? And what's the long-term thought process? Do you want to dissect it somehow? Yeah.
So
what's
actually, like PB&J, I did not modify anything on the PB&J side except for like commenting out like certain things so that it doesn't really do an IPMI call. The PB&J side is kind of like did stay. I do have like another question regarding that, but like the PB&J side is as it is, and it's basically in CapT. Like I added like a logic to talk to PB&J in a similar fashion how we talk to Tinkerbell and CapT, which is basically by doing like gRPC calls that are controlled by CRD objects and something like that. So I just like similar to how we have like the Tinkerbell authority, I added like a PB&J gRPC authority like endpoint to the CapT workflow and CapT in like environment, like the controller, sorry. Yeah. And that like now talks to PB&J. So it has nothing to do with like the PB&J project itself, actually. Like I didn't have to modify anything on that side.
Any thoughts around like what the future this future controller of PB&J might look like? Or is it still too early?
You mean like making PB&J into like a controller fashion so that it can like work with Tinkerbell? I'm not sure about that. Micah might have some better thoughts on it, but like I think the idea was to like have it seamlessly work with the Tinkerbell stack by converting it into a controller rather than like having it like a gRPC service and having something else talk to it. So that was like from the Tink side of it. This what I was kind of bringing up was from the CapT side of it, where currently CapT is like behaving like a gRPC client. So it's in that context that I brought up this conversation. But yeah, that is also like a interesting thing that's like that I don't have 100% information on yet, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm very interested in that and have some PB&J knowledge. So hit me up on Slack if you want to talk more about it or have questions. I think
awesome.
A lot of the code that we have in the PB&J repo itself is not needed if you're going to create a controller out of it entirely. So yeah, anyways, if you're interested or anybody else, let's just keep this conversation going in Slack.
Sure, yeah, awesome. And regarding PB&J, like modifying it, like there was another thing that like popped up in like conversations we had with my team. So like PB&J like basically does like power and boot for like hardware related sim. Was there any idea ever to like include support for like maybe like cloud providers and things like that? For example, like talking with VMC or talking with like other cloud VM providers, like having it like have like a plugin method to like do the same boot operations for a VM versus like an actual hardware. Was that ever like a thought came up? I mean, was there ever a thought or something?
I've had that thought, but I don't know if I've seen it in public anywhere until now. I think that's a really interesting idea, and I don't know where. I think it should exist. I don't know where it should live though. I think that might be an interesting question to ask, like where should it go? Because PB&J is basically just a gRPC wrapper around another library called BMC lib. BMC lib talks to out of band stuff, like actual physical out of band. And I don't know if that I'm almost, I don't know. I would seem unlikely that that project would be interested in like having cloud providers in their repo.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe not. We could reach out to that community as well and talk to them, but maybe this is just a brand new thing that new library or something, or I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but yeah, something exists that just does power next boot for cloud or something. That would be pretty interesting, I think.
Okay, yeah, just a thought like that came up. Yeah.
I think it would be I don't know, the more I talk about it, right, the more my face gets a little weird because that's not bare metal, right? And we are kind of catered towards the bare metal, so it might just be a small ancillary project or something that is you know, triggered on or toggled on or something, because it's not technically bare metal, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But it sounds like only me and you are very interested in this topic, at least of the colors on here. So we should talk more about it though.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything else. Like, thank you so much. Yeah.
There's a section of the Kubernetes, the KRM proposal that there's several sections that talk about PB&J. It just sort of says these are not goals of this proposal. There are things to be considered in the future, and it sounds like you are thinking about those. So it sounds like we're queuing up that proposal. As far as the cloud provider side of things goes, I think, and you're saying it is or is not bare metal. If you were to run Tinkerbell in an Equinix Metal environment and you wanted to have Tinkerbell's PB&J implementation in that environment, turn off the machine, then it would have to make like an Equinix Metal shutdown API call. So the parallels here between an AWS purpose and our purposes, it's it's real. What does that look like for a PB&J controller? Maybe it's the same resource with like different annotations that hints to what cloud provider actually does the work, something like how CSI drivers work. So yeah, that'll be a lot of fun stuff to explore in that proposal.
Yeah, great point. Very great point. All right, awesome. Thanks again, Arvind. Any other just about 5 minutes, any other topics or discussion items anybody wants to bring up? Going once, going twice. All right, thanks so much everybody for joining. Thanks everyone for getting involved. And if you've volunteered for work or contributed in any way by posting in the channels or communicating here, really appreciate it. Really excited to work with everyone here. So have a great week, and triage party, same time next week, same link. So if you're interested, come on out. Take care, y'all.